So let's take a look at what we've got here now. Joe, anything live happening at the moment?
Yeah, the buzzard's just being fed.
Oh, yeah, OK, let's go live to the buzzard then. We've got that there at the moment. So any idea what it's feeding?
Some small mammal, I'd say.
Small mammal in there at the moment. Cracking view, though.
Loads of food.
Loads of food?
Loads and loads of food, yeah.
Fantastic. The light's gorgeous, isn't it? Absolutely stunning. We've been watching this nest, though, over the last few days, and there's been some quite unusual behaviour. Now, in birds like eagles, golden eagles, you very often see one large chick and then one smaller chick, and the larger one will be bullying the small one. But here, look at this in this buzzard's nest. The larger chick is not only bullying the smaller chick, it's pushing it out of the nest. And this has been going on throughout the course of the days that we've been watching it. Now, the younger one doesn't topple to its doom on this occasion. It turns around. The instinct to get back into that nest is certainly strong, and it manages to climb back up despite the attentions of its bullying mate there. Gets back into that nest, and I can say that it's still there at the moment, but this sort of behaviour is not commonly seen in buzzards. We've also been watching them feeding. This gives us a fantastic opportunity, of course, to look into these birds' diets. And what we've noticed here is, look, this. So this is a buzzard bringing in a male sand lizard, then it arrives with a slow worm, and now it's arrived with a grass snake, 3 of the 6 reptile species that we have here. Now, the grass snakes we've seen being fed to young buzzards before when we were up at Innis here, but again, being able to watch these nests throughout the course of the day reveals some extraordinary behaviour.
But they're not the only ones that have a bit of sibling rivalry. It's happened to our buzzards as well. Certainly when we put the camera on them early on, look at them. You've got one much bigger than the other. We presume those eggs didn't hatch at the same time, and that's why there's a difference in size. But look, that bigger one is pushing the smaller one almost off the nest. And do you know what I find surprising about that? If you looked, you could see that the crop of that little one was full. So there's obviously enough food for both of them.
It's not about food at all.
I mean, you know, why squabble if you've both got food? That's the question I would ask.
And it's unusual in these buzzards, we have to say.
Let's have a look at them live, though, because they're doing pretty well. And as you can see there, the squabbling has stopped. They've settled down. And this is certainly what we've noticed over the last couple of days. That squabbling definitely is not happening as much. Although, look at the look. Look at the look on that
I wouldn't
bigger
turn
one's
my back
face.
on that other buzzard. If I was the little guy in that nest, I'd be pretty vigilant.
Yeah, that it's definitely not enjoying its smaller sibling sharing its space, is it? And if body language told you anything, look at that. But, as I say, the parent bird is coming in. There's plenty of food. And again, this is interesting. Parent bird has brought food in, and those 2 chicks are not interested. They're full. They don't need any more. So that's fantastic. I mean, they should continue developing, and that, hopefully, fingers crossed with a positive hat on, is going to be a successful nest.
Indeed.
Let's check out our buzzard nest. I find this nest really interesting because all looks calm at the moment, and you've got the adult bird sitting there, the 2 chicks. There are 2, one's much bigger than the other. Very calm, cool and collected. But it hasn't always been like that. It seems to change from this scene, again, when it's all calm, the adults are coming in with a slow worm, feeding those chicks, and then it'll switch to bully boy behaviour. And that larger chick is really quite vicious to the smaller one, which we reckon is about 3 days younger. But look at it, pecking its back. It gets so vicious, it puts its claws in its back, and it pecks so hard that it literally rips the flesh away. It's horrible to watch. But you know what they say, what goes around comes around, and just watch what happens now. That bully boy gets his claws stuck in his head. We were a bit concerned about it, but then it managed to get it out. It sort of sulks in the corner. But look at this little one, panting. It's wounded, it's deflated, it's bullied. But then, another day, all is calm again. The adults come in with all that food, and they take it in turns to eat it. But look at this, I like this, because then this little one that's been bullied is feisty, snatches that prey away, but then sadly realises that it's not capable of taking the feathers off that bit of prey, and feeding it to itself, so it has to wait for the adult. But you can see it's being fed, it's strong, it's feisty, and it's still being bullied. And as I say, these attacks get really vicious. Look at that. I mean, it's just horrible to watch. But it's doing okay. That little one is still doing okay. And do you know, we've had
It's doing
cameras-
okay. It's mentally scarred. What are you talking
Well, it's
about?
mentally scarred, but
How do you want to be stuck in a nest with a big bully like that slashing your back?
no, I would absolutely hate it, I've got to say. But isn't it interesting that we've had plenty of buzzard nests in the past
Yeah.
on the watches. We've never seen that sort of behaviour before. Apparently it does happen in buzzards' nests. We've seen it with the kestrels when they bully their weaker chicks so much that they end up dying. But I don't know, I'm going to... surprise, surprise. I'm going to be positive, and I think it's feisty
Look,
enough to survive.
We think they're about 25 days old at the moment. That means that they could, well, that little chick could need to spend another 25 days in the
Oh,
nest,
poor
more than
thing.
3 weeks. It's going to be on Buzzard line as soon as it possibly can, complaining about the bullying.
I don't like that big one. I've really gone off it.
OK.
Now, we've done an update on a couple of nests from the weekend that are doing pretty well, but if you were watching our live cameras online and on TikTok, then you may have seen a shocking drama playing out, and it was with this nest. It was our buzzard nest. If you're watching last week on the show, you know that we've got 2 chicks, and you can see one is considerably larger than this smaller one. The larger one's about 30 days old, the smaller one only 3 days younger, we think, but considerably smaller. And you can see here the adult is feeding the big chick first, the smaller one is begging, and it's only once that bigger one has had enough that the smaller one gets any of the tidbits. And there has been a lot of fighting, as you would have seen last week in that nest. So let's have a look at that nest live right now. And you'll see that there's only 1 chick left. So what happened to the other chick? Well, before I show you, I will warn you because it's pretty shocking, it's not pleasant, and it's a little bit upsetting to watch. But this is what happened, this is what we witnessed. This is Saturday in the morning, a slow worm is brought in, and you could see the little chick is feisty, it's up, it's healthy. The big chick scoffs that slow worm down, and then it has an intention. It pins its sibling down, and it seriously attacks it. And this is the most vicious and sustained attack that we've ever seen on the watches. As I say, we saw it last week, and it went from them attacking each other to feeding to resting. And that continued to go on. But this was a 2-hour sustained attack. But first of all, that little chick fought back, and then it just got so brutal, and it eventually fell out of the nest, and it dropped to the floor and obviously didn't survive. And as I say, it lasted 2 hours, and for our nest watchers watching, it was really awful to watch. And I know some of you were watching it at home and got quite upset before we didn't go quite so close up on those cameras. But shocking stuff. I mean, we've had buzzards before, but we've never seen anything like that with buzzard chicks, have we?
No, we haven't. So why does it happen, do we think? Well, food shortage would be the obvious thing if they were fighting over food. But they seem to have been fighting when they've had full crops. However, having said that, in the past, when there were far more rabbits in the UK, they were a principal food source for buzzards, and if a buzzard brought in a rabbit, it wasn't just one meal in a nest, it would last some time. We've only seen a handful of rabbits being brought in. There they had a slow worm, frankly not a lot of meat on a slow worm, so food might have been implicated. But the other thing we've got to accept is that animals have different personalities, different characteristics. I mean, just because they've come out of 2 buzzards' eggs don't mean that they aren't, A and B. Think about your pets. If you've got 2 cats, 2 dogs, they're very, very different in their personalities. It may well be that we've just got an extremely aggressive buzzard in that nest.
Ferocious, but I'll tell you what, that's going to be a successful hunter, isn't it?
I'll tell you, when it fledges, I'm not going out. I'm just going to stay in.
And next up now, this nest, it's caused a lot of drama, this series,
Oh,
but...
no. Which one? Which one?
Which one? Which one? It could be any of them, to be perfectly
Yeah.
honest. Let's have a look at our buzzard nest. Now, of course, we did see the demise of the smaller chick, and people were up in arms about it. But what we have to remember about buzzards is that they are such a conservation success story.
They are. I mean, it's really brilliant to see a bird of prey like this returning in the numbers that they have done. You know, we're getting used to seeing them now all of the time. You look up and you see a big bird in the sky. I mean, a lot of the time it's either a red kite or a buzzard. It's so exciting to see these birds where they belong, but we can't forget to appreciate them just because they're here now.
Exactly.
It's a lot of work that's taken to get the population to where it is in that stable range.
Yeah.
So we've really got to appreciate them because, you know, they weren't always here, and looking towards the future, who knows what could happen. So
No,
we've got
they
to love
weren't.
everything.
I mean, they're now found in every single county, aren't they? There's about 70,000 breeding pairs, which was, I mean, they've quadrupled their numbers since 1970s.
No, they're doing really, really well. I mean, they're quite a generalist in terms of the food that they catch, so that helps. They do quite well in all kinds of different weathers, as we've seen, although they have been a bit hot as well. So, you know, that really helps them kind of branch out faster, and their
Absolutely.
distribution has kind of increased. But it's been an emotional roller coaster watching this nest.
It has.
I've got mixed feelings about the chick. Now I'm very much I look at nature and it's very much nature, and I, you know, have no feelings. Well, I do have lots of feelings about it, but you know, I don't like to pinpoint. Oh, this is the bad guy. This is the good guy. This buzzard chick is unusually aggressive, and we can't quite figure out why. It's really quite interesting. So who knows what is? I mean, I'm sure birds have some sort of personality. Personality is a really hard thing to study because it's very subjective. So who knows? But they definitely have individual differences over time between, you know, individuals. So that constitutes personality, and you can't argue, you know, whatever was going on there.
We think that buzzard chick is going to grow up into being a super buzzard of Dorset. That's what we've decided.
The dominant
one.
Yeah.
Raise loads of chicks.
Yeah.
It's going to be great.
Yeah. No, it will have all the babies,
Yeah,
I'm sure. because
exactly.
It's the boss, clearly.
What about the buzzards? They've been bringing in plenty of reptiles. Again, sand lizards. We counted 3. Once again, that's a male there. 14 grass snakes have been flown in and fed to those chicks like a long bit of spaghetti. Look at that. Can you believe that's gone down whole? And slow worms. That's also gone down the gullet of a buzzard. Look at that. Go on, get it down. Go on, and there's another one. So plenty of reptiles feeding the chicks. Kestrels, again, going back to them. 5 common lizards. Despite being our commonest reptile, only 5. I can't believe it's going to get that down. I mean, they've all struggled a little bit. But, yep, they've done a good count, I reckon.
Indeed. So the one species that we haven't seen them taking, that we would have expected to see them, is the adder. Not until today, when our buzzards got into the ophiphagy. Oh yes, look at this. They brought in an adder today. It was still alive in the nest, and the chick is standing above it. Now, I know what you're thinking. This is Britain's only venomous snake. Is this chick in peril? Is it even more in peril when it starts to swallow a living adder whole? Well, you've got to think there's a difference between venom and toxin. Venom has to be directly injected into the bloodstream to have its effect. If you swallow venom and you incapacitate it through your digestive system, then it cannot become toxic. And what you can see here is the chick tearing up the adder's head. Now, obviously the venom glands are in that head and it is swallowing them, but unless it has a lesion, an ulcer in its stomach, there's very little chance that that venom will get directly into its bloodstream and therefore have any potent effect. And what we've noticed, not in birds actually, but in mammals, is that many species have anti-hemorrhagic or anti-neurotoxic antibodies in their blood. So over a period of time, they've evolved to be able to be more tolerant of snake venom should it accidentally get into their system. Now, we've seen our buzzards feeding on lots of reptiles here, so they may have gone down that route. There are other raptors, even those that we see in Europe, things like short-toed eagles that feed a lot more on snakes, so it's likely that they might have done.
Let's check out our buzzard nest, because this was another shocker, wasn't it? This chick that's looking extremely healthy and has grown immensely since we last saw it is the chick that attacked its sibling. As I say, it's grown a lot and it looks very handsome there. It's stretching its wings, but as I say, it was not going to tolerate a sibling in that nest. It attacked it and pushed it out of the nest, and now it's flapping its wings, it's almost ready to go, and, well, ready to branch, should I say. And it's getting all the food that was supposed to be for the two of them. Now, a few of you wanted to name this chick. I'm going to read you just a couple of them. Peaky Blinder, Beaky Blinder, which I think is quite good, and Marmite. And I think that's a good name because you could either look at that chick and call it a psychopath or an ultimate survivor. And as nature is red in tooth and claw, I think ultimate survivor is what it is because it's doing remarkably well and will be fledging in the near future.